Hey everyone, welcome to the channel, The Formula for Success and Wealth, your go-to place to learn how to build assets and live smart. So, let's dive in. Another video with a topic that really matters. I always mention that during my journey to earning my first million, later came 10 million, 20, but honestly, the amount doesn't matter. The hardest part was getting started. I'll stop there or people start jumping to conclusions. You know how it is. The first 10,000 takes a while. Unless you already come from a stable background, it might take longer. But the first 100,000, that's the real milestone. Once you hit that, things begin to shift. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Once you reach that mark, your progress picks up speed. There's even a book I recommend, The Snowball, which tells Warren Buffett's story. And that's exactly it. Once you hit that point, the snowball starts rolling faster. Personally, I've never seen someone hit 100,000 and not go on to make their first million. Of course, there are exceptions, like that guy you know who blew everything on gambling. But in that case, it's not about the number. It's about mindset. Usually those who reach that amount are on the right track. Now, is it possible to reach 100,000 quickly? It depends. Not everyone can do it fast, especially those earning minimum wage. But the first thing you need to do is figure out whether this goal is actually realistic for your situation. And that's what we're going to explore together here. Quick thing, if you're watching and you're serious about escaping financial stress, learning how to invest with clarity and truly changing your life, subscribe now and turn on notifications. This could be the content that shifts your path, but you need to stay with us on the next steps. Don't wait. All right, let's go. First thing to do is check if aiming for 100,000 is even doable in your case. And this is where many people completely miss the mark. Some folks set goals that are totally unrealistic, like saying, I'm marrying Giselle Bündchen this year. Not happening. So be real with yourself about what's actually possible. And how do you test if 100,000 is achievable? By using a basic tool I've shown before, the compound interest calculator. Search for it on Google. Just enter how much you have now. Let's say you've saved up 8,000, which already puts you in a small group in Brazil. And let's say, after reviewing your finances, you can invest 500 a month. That's a decent start. Then enter an annual return of 12%, which is very reasonable with a good CDB. But what about inflation? For now, we're just looking at the nominal target. We'll adjust that later. What matters now is understanding the time involved. Try 5 years, didn't hit it. Try 8 years, still no. At 9 years, you've got it. It lands at 115K. Check this out. Between years 8 and 9, the jump is massive. 1 year made the difference. What was growing slowly suddenly takes off. That's the power of compounding in action. Now, if that timeline makes sense to you, great. Personally, I think 9 years is a long time to reach 100K, because at that rate, hitting 1 million could take 25 years, and no one wants to wait that long. But this scenario assumes 500 a month. What if you tighten your budget and boost that amount? That's where phase 2 begins. You need to switch into economy mode. Charlie Munger, Buffett's partner, always said to cut out the nonsense. No need to go extreme, but take a hard look at your spending. Got an expensive car, high rent, subscriptions you don't use? All of that makes a difference. If you can, squeeze out just 250 more a month. It changes the whole picture. And if this content is speaking to you, opening your eyes, don't wait. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. That's how you make sure you don't miss the next videos that could push you even further toward financial freedom. This isn't just entertainment, it's a real tool for change. Let's say you start investing 750 instead of 500. You shave off 2 years. And instead of hitting 115K in 9 years, you reach 162K in the same time. That means reaching 1 million in 22 years instead of 25, just from that one adjustment. So take a close look at your budget. At UVP, we have a tool that helps a lot with that, but you can also create your own spreadsheet at home. If you're still starting out and only putting in 50 a month, UVP might not be ideal yet. It works. Better for those already able to invest 300 or more. In those cases, you can really amplify your returns. But early on, the key is clarity, knowing where your money is going. Cutting the non-essentials. Every small tweak adds momentum to your snowball. If you're paying $3,500 in rent but only earning $1,000, it's obvious that housing costs are way too high for your income. Even if you don't have kids or dependents, you can still adjust. For instance, sharing your place with a friend for a year can cut that expense in half. That alone speeds up your progress toward your financial targets. For people in the middle class, these cuts make a huge difference. Instead of taking 6 years to save up a certain amount, you might shorten that to 4. That's a much more manageable time frame. Everything shifts once you start seeing your finances clearly and making smart little adjustments. But that only happens if you get organized, build a spreadsheet, and track where your cash is actually going. I just pulled a student example to show how a simple shift in mindset can change everything. These tweaks can seriously move you closer to your goal. The third tip ties into that. You're not opening the spreadsheet just to cut back on small things. It's not about skipping coffee or saying no to a movie night. That doesn't change the big picture. Focus on your biggest expenses. Track where most of your money is going. Many people find that 40% of their income goes to what? Now is the time to figure out where most of your money is going. Fill out the spreadsheet and identify what's hitting your budget the hardest. This next tip might trigger some reactions, but it has to be said. Start a small business or sell something. Yes, it's tough in Brazil, but there's no way around this if you want to save 100K. When you tell people you're starting something to hit that goal, they'll doubt you. Some will laugh, criticize, or say you're being unrealistic. But that's exactly where the turning point lies. You have to act anyway, because no one else is going to build your financial freedom for you. It's all on you. If you want financial independence, know this is where the path begins. Invest in what actually brings returns, knowledge. Click the link in the description and check out how the Miles course could be the push you've been missing to change your game. You deserve this shift, and it all starts with one simple choice: stay the same or evolve. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and come along. This journey isn't about luck, it's about decision, and yours starts now. Now, there are people who are stretched to the limit, working 14 to 20 hours a day, barely sleeping. In that case, it's really not doable. But if you're middle class and have some time, you can take action. Look for ideas, do your research, run some tests, see what's realistic. I've talked about kits, basic products, anything that can bring in a bit more income each month. If you can generate an extra 500 to 700 without going into debt or getting tangled up, that cash can make a huge difference in your journey. One of our students, Enzo, had a pizza shop. He joined a live session and shared how he made it work. He's growing, and he's not alone. A lot of middle-class folks have gotten real results from small ventures. Of course, for those at the very bottom, grinding through app jobs or hustling on the street, it's a much tougher reality. But if you have any space to try something, go for it. It's okay if it doesn't work out. At least you tried. And if you end up in the 30% who make it, you could be the next to break free. You already have the knowledge. You've already looked at your budget. The odds are real. Don't let people's negativity hold you back. Usually they're just stuck and trying to keep you stuck too. This whole idea of creating extra income isn't a shallow tip. It's the actual method most people used to build real wealth. It's not about being born rich. Brazil's not a monarchy handing out inheritance to everyone. A lot of people started with nothing and grew through their own effort. When someone tries to talk you out of it, it's often because they've given up on themselves. But just because they didn't make it doesn't mean you won't. I believe in your potential. And now I want you to come back to this video in a year and comment how your financial life has changed, how much you've saved, and where you are now. Let's turn this video into a milestone. Share your journey. Because stories like yours can help others see that change is possible. There are people out there who think they're helping, but they're really just making things worse. What's crazy is, some of them even started YouTube channels thinking they're doing good by spreading this nonsense. Now, if you've already passed that small monthly income boost and want to speed things up, go straight to uvp.com.br. If you build a soul ID stock portfolio, for example, those 12% gains will feel outdated. You can aim for way more than that. And I'm not even talking long-term. This is about right now, short-term growth. Now let me take a look at some questions from our channel. Subscribers, because if you're not subscribed, don't even bother asking, all right? We prioritize those who are walking this journey with us toward their first million, and we're getting close. Junior Santos asked this: is there a way to avoid the 30% withholding tax on foreign dividends? Man, totally avoiding it isn't possible. But there are ways to reduce it, yes. You can use Irish ETFs, for example, which benefit from treaties that help with that. But completely eliminating it is out of the question. Still, keep in mind that the US system is far less tax than ours. Over there, the production chain faces almost no tax. So even with that withholding cut, you still pay less than you would in Brazil. Don't fall for the idea that just because dividends are taxed there, the tax is higher. In reality, it's much lighter than what we deal with here. Now, Claudia sent another question. Can we trust the inflation indexes? Because in practice, it feels like property and product prices go up more than what's shown. That could be confirmation bias. Let me explain. Some people believe there's a conspiracy behind it, that we should track M1, money supply, and so on. But that line of thought assumes the economy never grows, which isn't true. Sure, injecting more money into the economy eventually causes inflation, but that doesn't invalidate the current methodology. IBGE uses a basket of services to do these calculations. They track a variety of goods and services across different regions. People with higher incomes, for instance, will perceive inflation differently because they tend to buy products that aren't part of the standard consumer basket, which is primarily based on spending habits of the lower income population, the majority in Brazil. That's why the inflation index reflects an average, not your personal inflation. But you can build your own index. I've already shown how to do it. Track how much of your income goes toward gas, food, transportation, and monitor it over time. If your income is rising faster than the prices of these items, you're in a good spot. If not, your purchasing power is shrinking. I'm actually working on a spreadsheet to help you calculate your own index more easily. And yes, it's worth pointing out that IBGE has a lot of career public servants, not political appointees. These are professionals with job security who follow established, serious methodologies. If there were manipulation, you'd expect to see changes depending on the administration, whether under Bolsonaro or now under Lula. But that didn't happen. So despite the criticisms, the data follows a fairly reliable method. As for real estate prices, they're not always included in the IPCA. Sometimes the IGPM is used instead, especially for rent. In Guyana, for example, when rent prices jumped by 20%, the index reflected that. And when rents dropped, the index showed that too. Sure, there are flaws, but overall, these indexes are trustworthy. Even banks rely on them to set interest rates and terms in contracts. If the numbers were fake, banks wouldn't touch them. So generally speaking, these indexes are reliable. If they weren't, financial institutions wouldn't be using them as benchmarks for interest rates, for example. They use them because There's a certain level of confidence and a solid structure behind the data, even if the methodology isn't perfect. And to be honest, no methodology ever is. We just need to understand that there's always going to be a gap between the average inflation reported by the government and what each person actually experiences. That's just how it works. The inflation you see in the news doesn't apply equally to everyone. It depends on your spending habits, income level, and where you live. That's why many people feel like inflation is worse than what's being reported. And regarding all the talk about data being manipulated, look, if it were really that easy to change numbers, it would have already been done by multiple administrations. But even with governments that have completely different ideologies, the numbers have stayed consistent. There's a lot of conspiracy theory talk that these figures are fake, that the indexes are meaningless, but most of the time, what's really missing is a basic understanding of how these things work. It's not perfect, but it's not a scam either. And if everything were really being manipulated, financial institutions wouldn't be using these indexes to base their loans, financing, investments, and so on. So there's a level of seriousness here that we can't just ignore. If this video made sense to you so far, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications now. Don't wait for the algorithm to show you the next video. Do it now and commit to this journey with us, because those who follow along for real change their lives for real. See you in the next video. We're in this together.